A week ago, everybody was ready to write the obituary. Brazil, 5-time champions, the only nation to play every single World Cup, drawing 1-1 with Morocco, looking disjointed, looking dependent on one man, looking like a team that still hadn't figured out who they actually are.
Morocco dominant early on, really dominant actually, and then got a deserved goal.
What this Brazil side is, they are defensively going to try and be solid. They're robust, but it doesn't necessarily have the flair that we've seen of Brazilian teams in the past. But I think in some ways, for me personally, as the game wore on, it became a little bit disappointing.
Then they walked into Philadelphia against Haiti, and inside 36 minutes, the conversation flipped completely. 3-0, 3 goals before half-time. A striker problem that's followed this nation around for over a decade, solved in real time, in front of everyone. And the most terrifying detail of all, Neymar wasn't even involved. This wasn't a team scraping a result. This was a team discovering a version of itself that the rest of this tournament should be very, very afraid of. Let's get into the numbers because they tell a story most people are sleeping on. 3 goals before half-time, against a side that's set up to make life difficult. 7 shots, 4 on target, 3 goals. That's not luck. Mateus Cunha, first start of the entire tournament, walks away with a brace. Vinícius Júnior involved in all 3 goals. Endrick comes off the bench and has 1 ruled out for offside, which tells you the kid was still a threat in just 26 minutes. And here's the number that should scare every other nation left in this competition. Brazil just put 3 past a World Cup opponent, sat top of Group C, and they still have Neymar, their record goal scorer in national team history, sitting on the bench, waiting to be unleashed. To understand why this Haiti performance matters so much, you have to understand what came before it. The Morocco game wasn't just a bad result. It was a warning light flashing on the dashboard. Vinicius rescued a point with a moment of pure individual brilliance, but underneath that headline was a team with real problems. No rhythm through the middle. A striker position that had been a national headache for over a decade. Against Morocco, that forward didn't exist. The attack leaned entirely on individual magic. And when Brazil needed control late in the game, it was Alisson making saves to protect a point they had no business needing protecting. Haiti was the answer to those questions, and Ancelotti didn't respond with chaos. He responded with precision. 1 change. Mateus Cunha in for Igor Thiago at centre forward, same shape. But everything about how the front line behaved was suddenly different. Nah, I know what some of you are thinking. It's Haiti. Of course Brazil scored 3. That proves nothing. Let's deal with that properly. Haiti set up in a back 5. They packed the central areas. For the opening 20 minutes, it actually worked. Brazil were getting caught offside, had a goal chalked off early. This wasn't men against boys for the first third of the game. What changed wasn't the opponent. What changed was Brazil's structure, and the "it doesn't count without Neymar" argument. That's actually the opposite of a weakness. A team that wins comfortably and finds a striker solution without their greatest attacking weapon anywhere near the pitch isn't a team running out of road. That's a team with another gear nobody's seen yet. Let's go inside exactly what happened on that pitch. Minute 23. Vinicius drives at the box, forces the issue. The ball breaks loose in the chaos. Cunha, who spent the entire half dragging Haiti centre-backs out of position instead of standing still waiting for service, reacts first. 1-0. Not a pretty team goal. A goal built on movement and instinct. Exactly the thing missing against Morocco. Minute 36. Same blueprint. Vinicius finds Cunha in space again. Cleaner connection this time. Clinical finish. 2-0. And right before half-time, the goal that told you everything about where this team is heading. Haiti push up with a high line. Paquetá reads it instantly. 1 perfect pass, time to the inch, and Vinicius is in alone, finishing through the goalkeeper's legs. 3-0 before the break. That third goal isn't just a scoreline, it's a structural shift. Brazil weren't waiting around for Vinicius to manufacture something from nothing anymore. They were actively building situations to release him into space. And when Vinicius runs into space instead of receiving against a set defense, he becomes one of the hardest players on the planet to handle. Player of the match. Involved in all 3 goals. And he didn't even need to do it alone. This is where the real story is, not the scoreline, the shape behind it. For years, Brazil's biggest tactical flaw wasn't a lack of talent. It was too much talent without a system to connect it. Against Morocco, that flaw was on full display. Possession without purpose. Stars without structure. Ancelotti's fix was almost embarrassingly simple on paper, but it took real coaching intelligence to identify. Cunha doesn't play like a traditional Brazilian number 9 waiting in the box. He drops into pockets, drifts wide, attacks loose balls, drags centre-backs into decisions they don't want to make. That movement does 2 things at once. It creates direct chances for himself, and it opens exactly the kind of running lanes that turn Vinicius from dangerous into unplayable. Behind that front line, the midfield triangle finally looked like it was built for a purpose. Casemiro sitting as the stabilizer, shielding the back line and giving the fullbacks license to push forward. Bruno Guimaraes controlling the tempo of the game, rather than just recycling possession. And Paquetá, for the first time in a long time, playing with real freedom as the connector between midfield and final ball, instead of floating around the pitch without direction. And here's the deeper tactical point that almost nobody's discussing. This Brazil team is no longer a Neymar team. For over a decade, every opponent built their entire defensive game plan around stopping one man, the reference point, the rhythm setter, the player who slowed games down until he found his pass. Vinicius is a completely different problem. He doesn't control tempo, he breaks it. He doesn't slow games down to find an opening. He speeds them up until the opposition's defensive shape simply falls apart. That's not an upgrade or a downgrade from the Neymar era. It's an entirely different puzzle for every coach left in this tournament to solve. And right now, they don't have an answer. Here's what it comes down to. Brazil walked into this World Cup carrying 24 years of unfinished business. A nation that's used to control, authority, and inevitability, stuck in a cycle of quarterfinal exits and penalty shootout heartbreaks since 2002. A week ago, the Morocco game made people nervous. Now, 3 goals before halftime, a striker problem that's haunted this country for over a decade, solved with 1 substitution, a midfield that finally looks like it understands its job, bench options like Martinelli and Endrick and Ryan Gravenberch-style depth waiting to change games late, and Neymar still hasn't even entered the story. If this is what Brazil look like while still incomplete, while still finding their rhythm, while still missing pieces, the question isn't whether they're dangerous anymore. The question is what happens when Ancelotti finally has everything available at once. Scotland are up next, and after Philadelphia, that fixture suddenly looks very different than it did a week ago. The 2026 World Cup didn't just get a Brazil problem, it got one nobody saw coming.